Welcome to the Elk Talk Podcast with Randy Newberg and Corey Jacobson. Presented by the Rocky Mountain Elk Foundation.
The goal is, what little you and I know about elk hunting, we share with people.
I've got an elk bugling, it's like 120 yards away. What do I do? First off, the thought would never cross my mind when an elk's bugling 120 yards away to call anybody on a cell phone.
All elk?
All the time? Only elk?
Only elk.
Well, it's us having conversations, so we usually go down some rabbit holes, but
If you hunt with Corey Jacobson, you will find the landscape is full of rabbit holes. We're just going to make this up as we go.
and you look at it like, oh, that's a target-rich environment. But if you're trying to single one out, a solo target there is much easier to go into than a big group.
We record everything, so there's no BSing, no lying, no faking it with us.
Did we hit the record
I thought
button?
I forgot to hit the record button. If you want to know something about elk hunting, this probably isn't the podcast to listen to. Should we give them a list of all the other podcasts where they might learn something? The Elk Talk Podcast is brought to you by the Rocky Mountain Elk Foundation, ensuring the future of elk, other wildlife, their habitat, and our hunting heritage. To become a member, go to rmef.org.
And the podcast is also brought to you by OnX Maps. And with OnX Maps, you can know where you stand with the most accurate hunting GPS tech on the market with land ownership maps that work offline. Go to onxmaps.com and use promo code ELKTALK, and you're going to save 20% when you sign up for an app membership at onxmaps.com.
The podcast is also brought to you by Gerber. Go to gerbergear.com and learn about the knives, the Vital, the Big Game Vital, the Gator Premium, all the things that we use when we're out in the woods, and not just knives, but also some really cool multi-tools that they have.
We're also proud to partner with Sitka Gear, and if you go to sitkagear.com, you'll see their full line of clothing, and their tagline is turning clothing into gear, and they are doing that through advanced technology that allows you to stay in the field longer, hunt harder, and stay safer.
The Elk Talk Podcast is also brought to you by GoHunt.com. Go to GoHunt.com and sign up for the Insider. The Insider is changing how hunts and hunting information are found. No doubt about that. Use promo code ELKTALK, and when you sign up for the Insider, you're going to get $50 of store credit, mad money, in their gear shop.
And we are also brought to you by Rocky Mountain Hunting Calls. And Rocky Mountain Hunting Calls is the original designer and inventor of the pallet plate diaphragm that's completely changed the way elk calls are made and used. And to find out more and to order your elk calls, go to RockyMountainHuntingCalls.com or BuglingBull.com and use promo code ELKTALK, and you're going to save 15% on all of your elk calls and elk call accessories.
And with that, Corey, we are ready to get into it.
Let's jump into it. All right, folks. Well, we're back with another episode of the Elk Talk Podcast here. And in the last episode, Randy and I kind of went into detail on application process and a little bit of, I wouldn't say strategy necessarily, but the process for the state of Wyoming. And we told you we'd be back with information on Arizona. So I think that's kind of our plan today, right, Randy?
That's the plan. Rumor has it that with my 4 little points, I'm guaranteed an Arizona elk tag this year. So I'm glad you're going to tell me how I can do that with 4 points, Corey.
Well, I was ready to do that, but we had a little conversation before we hit record here, and you kind of rained all over my parade, like summer Arizona monsoon rain all over my parade. So, yeah, we'll get into that.
I'm sorry about that.
You mentioned in the last...
That was not my intention.
I think it was, because you even mentioned it at the end of the last episode that when we got into the reduction in elk tags in the state of Arizona, I was going to be surprised. And our conversation just before we got started here was definitely a little bit of a shock.
Yeah. So before we get into that, I suppose we ought to cover the deadlines and the basics and all the other stuff that is required.
Yeah. Of course, I don't know. We give them that information up first, and maybe nobody will want to apply for Arizona.
So you're saying to increase our own draw odds, we should give them the bad news first, and they'll just hang up and say, "Heck with it, I'm not applying this year."
I don't know. I thought that our role in this podcast and everything was to educate people so that we could get them applying and get people hunting elk. And man, first 2 episodes of this year, there have been changes that have kind of been a little bit of a downer.
Yeah, I know. Well, Arizona, the easy part of Arizona is the deadline, right?
Yeah.
February 11th, 2020 is the deadline. So don't miss that, whatever you do. That would be bad.
That would be bad.
Arizona, unlike some other states, does not have this opportunity where you can go and buy a point afterwards.
Nope.
So if you want a point in Arizona, you got to do it before the February 11th deadline. And Arizona, unfortunately, requires that you buy a non-resident hunting license up front in order to even buy a point. So
there are a few other states that require that, but I believe Arizona is the most expensive of the non-resident hunting licenses.
Yeah,
at $160.
Yep. And then there's the $15 either application fee or bonus point fee. Even they're the same. So me, I look at it and say, you know what? I've invested in the license. Even if my odds are really low, I'm still applying versus just buying a point because the price is the same. It's $15 either way. I may as well shoot for the stars and hope that I draw some tag that, my odds are really low, but you never know. I've had it happen in Arizona before, so I'm a believer.
Yep.
So.
Well, and they changed the the draw process here, in 2016, I think. So 3-4 years ago, that gave you a better chance of drawing one of those shooting for the star units, which before you really had no, especially as non-residents. So non-residents in Arizona are capped at 10%.
Yep.
And most of those hunts in that first round, all of those non-resident tags would be distributed. So if you didn't have max points for that hunt, you really had no chance of drawing that hunt, especially for those harder to draw hunts. But they made a change 3 or 4 years ago that now you actually have a chance.
Yeah. And we'll go into that process and how that works. One thing, this is always remarkable. People ask, how does your son have 18 non-resident deer points in Arizona? Well, a little hint here. If you have young people in your family, $5 for their non-resident hunting license. Yep. If they're age 10 to 17, it's only $5 to apply your non-resident child in Arizona.
Yep.
That's how my son built so many points at just about no cost.
Starting at 10 years old. Yep.
Yeah, now that he's 29 years old, it costs him a bit more. But for the first 8 years, it didn't cost us much at all. So don't overlook that option if you have young people in your household. And,
absolutely.
That's a little bit, though, of a, loss leader, if you'd want to call it that, because by the time they're 18 and have to pay the full fee, they look at it and say, wow, I've got my 8 points, bonus points, and I've got a loyalty point. I'm not walking away now.
Yeah. No, Arizona's smart. They lock you in. They get you young when it's easy, and then they lock you into that, and you can't walk away from 8 points. And we were talking at the beginning. We talked last year when we were going through these breakdowns of each state that is one of the downsides of a point system is once you enter it, you're stuck in it. And as more and more changes are made and accommodations made throughout the years, it's usually not ever a positive change that's made to a point system. It's usually trying to mitigate that things are going downhill and we're just trying to slow the slide here. And you look at a state like Arizona, or I've got 11 points now. And 4 years ago, before they made the change to the draw process, there was a specific unit I was going for, and I could draw that hunt guaranteed with 8 or 9 points. And then they made the change to the system and to the draw process, and now it takes like 13 points to draw that same tag. And then, as we're going to get into and talk about another change this year in Arizona, it's going to add a couple more years onto that this year. So they kind of do lock you in, and you're at their mercy. That there's nothing you can do to change it other than walk away from an 11-year investment at $160 a year. And I guess I'm not willing to do that yet.
Well, we're going to go through the highlights of this. We don't have enough time to go through every bit of detail. The strategy articles out on the Go Hunt Insider are super, super helpful. Always go and download the proclamations from the state, whatever state we're talking about, as your first step. Read it. Pay attention to it, because there's always these little things that change, like Corey mentioned, that you just need to be paying attention to. So, should we walk through how the Arizona draw works?
Yeah, if you have your attorney on speed dial, and he can kind of help us understand.
I'll do my best with the disclaimer that I've been applying in Arizona since 1996, and I think I got it figured out, but every time I think I got these states figured out, I forget something or overlook something. But like we said earlier, you have to buy your non-resident license, whether it's the youth license or the full-price adult license. You have to apply. The elk deadline, along with antelope, is February 11th. And the draw, it happens in 2 sequences. So Arizona takes 20% of all tags and puts them over into, I think they call it the bonus pass, or the phase 1 or part 1. And what that is how it works is everybody goes into that draw, no matter what point level you have. But that 20% of the pool of tags goes to the people with the highest points. So if you have a lot of points, there's a good chance you could draw in that first part of the draw. You might get your tag there. But there's a few caveats. And Corey had mentioned that non-residents are capped at 10% of the total tags in any hunt code. Well, no more than half of that 10% quota can be filled in this first part of the draw. So it leaves at least the other half to be filled in the second part of the draw that we'll get to. But
and it used to be, that wasn't the case. It used to be 10% were capped for non-residents, but it wasn't capped within that first round. And there's so many more non-residents with higher bonus points that we would hit that 10% cap in the bonus pass almost every time and leave no non-resident tags for the next part, which is really the bulk of the tag drawing.
Yeah. So everybody goes into this first bonus pass, part 1 of the draw, and fights over that 20% of the tags, knowing that only half of the non-resident quota can be met in this first part. And then anyone who doesn't draw, resident and non-resident alike, goes over into the part 2 of the draw, which some people call it the 1-2 pass or part 2. And the second part of the draw allocates the remaining 80% of the tags based on a bonus point formula. So actually gets to, all right, I've got 4 points, so I get 4 raffle tickets. Corey's got 11 points. He gets 11 raffle tickets. There's a greater likelihood he's going to draw than the likelihood that I'll draw, but not guaranteed that he'll draw before I draw. Because one of my 4 raffle tickets or random numbers I get assigned could be lower than any of the 11 random numbers that Corey gets assigned. So, That's how the two
And then
parts of it work.
And then they have a third pass. So in Arizona, you can actually put up to 5 choices on your application.
Yeah.
And that's really important, especially in that second pass, because your first and second choice on the application are looked at. So if your name gets drawn and they look at it and they say, okay, you applied for Unit 9 Archery as your first choice, but all of those tags are gone. Sorry, you don't get one of those. They go right to your second choice and they say, okay, you applied for Unit 27 Late Rifle, and there are tags left there, so we're going to give you that tag. So your second choice does count on your application. And then they do a third pass where your third, fourth, and fifth choices are looked at if there are any tags left over, which for the most part, I can't imagine that there would be very many units that have a third, fourth, or fifth choice tag left over that you could draw, but just know that they break that into a separate pass, and your first and second choice both go into that second pass, which will get looked at.
Yeah. So to summarize that process, 20% of the tags go based on the person with the most points. Everybody goes in that draw. If you don't draw there, you go into the 80% pool or the second phase. And that is allocated based on your point bonus point system. You got, the more bonus points you have, the greater the likelihood, but no guarantee. And then, like Corey said, very seldom do those of us non-residents have any chance at the third part where they look at the third, fourth, and fifth choice. It's close to zero.
Yeah.
So that's kind of how the system works. Now, should we give them
a couple other things worth mentioning. Mm-hmm. Your bonus point, you pay $160 for your license, and then $15 for your bonus point or your application. And in Arizona, you can say, if I don't draw, I'd like to receive a bonus point. Yep. You can also get a permanent bonus point that never leaves, that you have for the rest of your life by going to Arizona and taking the hunter education course in Arizona.
Have you done that?
I still have not.
What? I went to Kingman in January of 2007. My wife's family lives in Vegas, and I said, I tell you what, darling, we should go to Vegas the first week of January. She looked at me as if she knew something was up. Instantly, her radar is flashing. Ulterior motive. So we flew down there, and I said, I'm going to go to Kingman for a few days. I'm going to do a little quail hunting, and then I'm going to take this class. She looked at me as if, I knew it. I knew there was some reason you wanted to go to Vegas. Yep, you're right, honey. Well, I love your family, but it made it a lot easier to decide to go to Vegas if I could go take the non-resident hunter ed class, because it's a one-day class. I think it's 12 hours you sit in that class.
And I want to say there have been some changes made recently that you can do it online, but then you have to show up to take the test in person, but you don't have to sit through the whole class. If I remember right, and I may be misspeaking there, but it seems like a couple of years ago they did change that, so you could take the class online. You still have to show up in person to take the test, and I think maybe do a field portion or something. But
that is how I am sitting here with 4 points, even though I drew an elk tag in Arizona in 2017, because I have my permanent hunter ed point. I also have the loyalty point because I've been applying in Arizona since Moby Dick was a minnow. And if you apply for any species for 5 consecutive years, the 6th year you get what's called the loyalty point. And as long as you continue to apply for that species, your loyalty point stays intact. So I've got my loyalty point, I've got my hunter ed point, and I've got a bonus point from 2018 and from 2019. So going into the 2020 draw, I've got 4 bonus points, even though I've only, 2 years ago, 3 years ago. So
Yeah. And the really cool part about it is there are some late hunts in Arizona that you can draw with 3 to 5 bonus points. And so getting 2, a permanent bonus point and a loyalty point, you start at 2 the very first year. Within a year or 2 of applying, you can draw another Arizona tag. So it's, they aren't high success type hunts, but you can be hunting big bulls in Arizona every 2 or 3 years realistically.
Yeah.
So I just found that information on the bonus point field test. So adults who are 18 and older and have completed the Arizona Hunter Education online course and have a minimum of 3 years hunting experience can take the bonus point field test. And so the online course, it says, is a self-paced program that's completed on the internet. Once a passing score of 80% is obtained, a completion certificate may be printed and a field test scheduled. And so the field tests are administered by instructors, and we rotate through practical application stations. And we have, there's the live fire, matching, practical hunt, and then a written exam. And average completion time is now just 1 hour for that field test.
Whoa.
Yeah. So
why wasn't I aware of that? Probably because I already have it. And I thought, what the heck? I don't need to pay any. I'm glad you brought that up. That's really valuable information, folks. 1 point, that hunter ed point can make the difference in Arizona.
Yeah, absolutely. So I think I took the reason I knew that, I think I've taken the online portion and completed it, and I just need to find myself in Arizona at some time where I can take that 1 hour bonus point field test and finish it up.
By this time next year, if you have not acquired that point, Corey, I don't think we're going to be friends any longer. Which my behavior on a daily basis gives you grounds for not being my friend any longer. But yeah. Well, I didn't know that. That's because, well, that makes it easier than having to bribe your wife into going to see her family in Vegas.
See?
The route I took. So, what else we got before we jump into the bad news?
I think that probably gets us to the bad news.
All right. So this is, how do I say this? This is a good news, bad news sort of thing. The good news is Arizona manages their wildlife based on actual data they observe, the harvest reports, the bull to cow ratios, the total populations observed, the cow to calf ratios. And I talked to one of their biologists this last weekend, and he said, because I was asking him about these huge changes in tag numbers for elk. He said, when we fly, and this is what we see and what we get for harvest data and everything else that goes into our model, sometimes we bump these numbers up and sometimes we bump them down. Well, 2020 is a year where they are bumping numbers down in some of their highest demand units. And the reason being is their models of what they've seen for total numbers, all this stuff, is telling them, hey, time to throttle back. In 2018 and 2019, they bumped them up because their models said, hey, we got more bulls out on the landscape, so let's crank tag numbers up. Well, this year, they're cranking them down, and in some units, they're cranking them way down. So I have these spreadsheets I go through every year. And I say, here's how many tags there were last year for this hunt code and that hunt code. And it tells me, I look at that because in years when they're cranking tag numbers down, it means that their models say, hey, we got to crank them down. But in the years when they're going to crank them back up, that tells me there's probably some older age class bulls in there because the prior years have had numbers down. So that first year when tag numbers go back up, why am I telling everybody this? I want to be the person applying that first year when they crank tag numbers back up. because by them having it lower in the years prior to that means total bull numbers are higher, the bull to cow ratio is higher, and the age class, just by the fact that lower tag numbers means more bulls were recruited into the older part of the population. So that's why I keep track of that information. Why did I tell the world that? I should I should sell my spreadsheet online.
I was just going to say we can make it a downloadable product and sell it.
I can't believe I just said that, but I did. So this is one of the years, though, that it's going the other direction, and I'll just use some examples. And these are units that I track, and the archery tag cuts are not nearly as dramatic as the rifle tag cuts. So the late rifle seasons, you're going to see way more tags cut than what you are in the archery and early rifle season. So just an example, Unit 1, a great unit. The archery permits are going from 300. They've been at 300 for years and years. They're going down to 250. Well, 50 less tags means 5 fewer non-resident tags using the 10% cap. So Unit 3A, 3C, I've never hunted it, but I still keep track of it. Archery tags are going from 135 to 100, whereas a few years ago, they cranked it from 125 up to 135. I think it's been there for 2 or 3 years. Unit 4A has always been a sleeper that I kind of keep on my radar because I've done 2 antelope hunts out there, and I see a lot of elk when I'm out there antelope hunting. But this year, something is really changing because they're lowering the archery numbers from 200 and almost 220 down to 120. So not quite a 50% cut, but close.
Wow.
Yeah, so you carve 100 tags out of that unit. That's 10 less non-resident tags. So let's see some of the other ones.
Yeah, when there were only 22 to start with.
Yeah,
and then you look at the bonus pass on that, and you quickly go from having a slight chance to having a much less slight chance.
Yeah, and the early rifle and early muzzleloader hunts, they give away so few of those tags that the odds are really, really tough anyhow. And the odds are going to go from really, really tough to really, really tough +1 or -1.
Exactly.
But just to use some examples, like I talked about Unit 1, what they're doing with the archery tags, they're cutting 75 of the late rifle tags.
Wow.
Unit 3A, 3C, they're cutting 50 of the late rifle tags. Unit 4A, they're cutting almost 75 of the late rifle tags. Unit 5A, they're cutting 48 rifle tags. Unit 7 East, they're cutting 50 rifle tags. Unit 9, late hunt, they're cutting 100 rifle tags. So you start adding all this up across all these units, and you're going to see a significant change in the draw odds in Arizona this year.
Yeah.
Just because that's what they have to do according to their management models and their surveys. And they put a lot of work into this. And that's part of why they have the quality that they do and the age class that they do is they actually take information and they use it for management. And I give them huge accolades for that. Even if it means in 2020, my 4 points are going to it's going to take a much more of a miracle for me to draw with my 4 points than it would have if I had 4 points in the prior year. So
yeah,
I think for people sitting on a lot of points who thought they were right there at that edge, you're going to want to put together a spreadsheet like I have and look and say, wow, as my unit, one of those units, my favorite, kind of the one I've always had my eye on or the one I always apply for. If your unit is one that had a lot of tag cuts, be ready. You might not draw this year, even if you were in that kind of close to being guaranteed in the 20% bonus round. with that drop in the number of tags, and it's going to be tougher.
Yeah, so, man, that's me.
I know.
When they changed it in 2016, I was within a year or two of drawing the tag I was going after. And when they changed the draw process, it added another 5 years onto what it would take me to draw. And so I'm looking at 12 or 13 points. And now with this change and the reduction in tags in the unit I've been applying for, it probably just added another 3 years on as a non-resident. So now I'm looking at 16 points for something I could draw with 8 or 9 points just 3 or 4 years ago.
Yeah. Point of that being, when you have the points to draw, go.
Yeah.
It's easy to look in the rearview mirror because we never know what the changes are going to be, right? We don't know.
Yeah.
They don't know on some of this stuff. But don't take anything for granted that it's always going to stay the same. These point systems, tag numbers are static and are changing, sometimes change dramatically, sometimes only change a little bit. But if it is a year that you could go.
Yep, absolutely. So what are you going to charge me to get access to your spreadsheet?
Well, I was thinking about that.
I bet you were.
We'll talk about that offline.
Right. I figured it would be too expensive for you to be comfortable mentioning in this episode.
My wife, I have hard drives stashed at work. I have hard drives stashed at home, and she'll ask me, "What's on all these old hard drives?" Oh, this is a lifetime of data, of spreadsheets, honey. It's more important than our will, our healthcare power of attorney. This is historical data related to draw odds going back to about 1996. And even though Go Hunt has, I think, 5 years of historical draw odds, I have draw odds going back to when it was before, it must have been before Al Gore even invented the internet. And it's stuff that is supported by the old sheets I used to tear out of the regulation books of what the draw odds were the year before. like anybody really needs the draw odds from 1999, right? I have them if you want them.
And what's funny is I'm a spreadsheet guy, and so I've got spreadsheets of Arizona and all the units back in the, late 90s, early 2000s. But then with the advent of Go Hunt and other things, and fish and game agencies have come a long way to making their websites more navigable and finding that information. So I kind of just quit doing that. I do still save a PDF copy of the proclamations each year.
Yeah.
But
when people say
spreadsheets,
when a lot of people ask me, Randy, you talk about using Go Hunt a lot. How can it save you that much time? Well, now people know how much time I was spending building spreadsheets and maintaining spreadsheets. To your point, I really don't need to do that with Go Hunt. But I still got this stupidity problem. And maybe it's a boredom issue. Maybe it's old habits never die. I don't know what it is. But yeah, I've got spreadsheets. But I can go and do the same thing with Go Hunt.
Yeah.
I just, the only thing is Go Hunt and all draw odds are historical. I try to use my spreadsheets for some sort of prospective projecting, and it's probably just a pipe dream to think that my spreadsheets give me some sort of prospective benefit.
I don't know. I think there's value.
Okay.
It's kind of like Go Hunt. Go Hunt brings all the information into one place and makes it really convenient and accurate. And I think your spreadsheets just take it one step further. A lot more work to do, but being able to look and see the decreases in tag numbers and everything is that's handy.
And being able to manipulate the Go Hunt database, if people go into filtering 2.0 and they start playing around with that, I don't even tell the folks at Go Hunt some of the things I do to manipulate their database. They probably look, if they do look at my activities out there, they're probably thinking, what is this guy doing? He just spent 8 hours last Saturday in the Wyoming module. What is he doing? Well, I'm trying to figure out how I can draw a tag. Point of all this being, it's not good news for total tag numbers in Arizona this year for elk. But I admire them for managing the way they do. A lot of states just say, yeah, same as last year. Well, when conditions are good and more opportunity can be available, I want to see states crank up tags. And when the numbers get below whatever their thresholds or parameters are, you know what? Knock those tags down and manage. And Arizona does a great job doing that. And I don't think it's by accident that Arizona has such a great reputation for quality and opportunity. They have really figured out a mix of how to meet that. And I don't think it's just by accident. I think it's because of a whole lot of hard work.
Yeah. So. Well, back to the drawing board. In our two episodes ago, we did our Q&A and gave people a really good strategy of how to use $1,000 and stretch it and apply for these hunts. And I think the two states we mentioned were Arizona and Wyoming. And now we've kind of given reason to maybe go back to the drawing board and look at that.
Yeah, I do think, though, that both of those being midterm and long-term options are still good ideas for the person with $1,000. Just don't make them your short-term option.
Yep. I agree.
That would be my thoughts on it. So, you going to tell the world what unit you always apply for, Corey?
Not yet. I've got to go through and look at Go Hunt and see what my real odds are, and see if it's still the unit I'm going to apply for. So
I'm going to tell people a little secret here. It's less of a secret anymore because so many people have seen us filming and hunting down there. But Arizona has some units called limited opportunity units. And those are units that within their management plan are places that Arizona does not want elk to become great in number like they are in some of their core units. So we have filmed 3 hunts in limited opportunity units. Well, what's the big deal about limited opportunity units? If you go to their proclamations, you scroll way down and it'll say limited opportunity. Well, the season dates are really good dates. There's rifle seasons in September and October. And non-residents are not subject to the 10% cap in those hunts. Yeah. So if people are asking, Newberg, how do you guys draw so many Arizona tags? A big chunk of those hunts are in those units that were listed as limited opportunity.
Yep.
And some of them have not, or were at one time limited opportunity, but now they've moved up to the regular subject to the 10, like a regular unit subject to the 10% cap. So no charge for that advice today. Again, why am I telling people this?
I'm sitting here scratching my head going, man, it's getting harder and harder to draw tags in all these places.
Yeah, because knuckleheads like me are getting on my podcast and Elk Talk Podcast and out on our forum saying, well, there's not a 10% cap in these units. I know, by the way,
I was going to apply it.
Yeah, we've shot elk in all these units. I'm just sitting here looking at myself, thinking, what? You're a knothead, Newberg. So,
my plan was to draw a good tag, a good archery tag.
Mm-hmm.
I've waited 10 years now, 11 years. And then after that, I'll get my permanent Hunter Ed point, and then I have my loyalty points. That's 2 points. And then I was going to start researching late archery hunts and some of the late hunts that don't take as many points to draw. But now I'm sitting there looking, going, man, I can barely draw a late archery hunt now with the points that I have. And
yeah,
so I'm going to be spending some serious hours on Go Hunt researching where I need to be focusing in Arizona.
Yeah. Well, you can do certain things in their filter 2.0 that manipulates that database to give you some pretty interesting information. And,
my tab with Randy Newberg is going up right now. First, I got to get a spreadsheet. I'm going to have to pay for information on how to manipulate Arizona data.
Yeah. Well, I've been very lucky in Arizona. I've drawn an early rifle tag in Unit 10. I've drawn limited opportunity hunts twice. I've drawn 3 late rifle tags. And some people would say, well, Newberg, you've been applying since 96. So that's 33 years or 23 years. Gosh, Randy, you're not that old. Don't give it 33, 23 years. So I've drawn 3 late hunts, 2 limited opportunity hunts, and an early rifle hunt. What's that? 6 tags in 23 years.
That's pretty good.
I'm averaging about 4 tags or 4 years per tag.
Yep. And I drew 2 good tags in Arizona in a 7 or 8 year period. But now I've gotten back in line and I'm been 11 years. Well, 12 years. This year will be 12 years since I last hunted Arizona.
Yeah. Well, I've drawn a couple other times when I did party applications, but I'm not counting those because my son had more points than I did, and a friend had more points than I did. I'm talking about kind of standing on my own there drawing. But
the thing you got to remember is you still used points. You still used points those years you drew those other tags too. So,
yeah,
man,
yeah. And what has helped me is having the 2 permanent points has been a huge help. Yeah.
Yeah, for sure.
So what are we forgetting? Oh, if you do go out to Onyx Maps and buy any of their apps, use promo code Elk Talk. Or if you go to Go Hunt and sign up on their Insider, use promo code Elk Talk, right?
Yep.
Since last time I screwed up what the benefits are of using that promo code, can you tell them? Because I'll mess it up again.
So for Go Hunt, if you sign up and use the promo code Elk Talk, you're going to get $50 to spend in Go Hunt's online gear store. And for Onyx, if you use the promo code Elk Talk, you're going to save 20% on any of their app purchases. So the Hunt app, which is what we use, you can do the Elite or the regular and purchase by state, or purchase the Elite and get access to up to 5 states.
Cool. A couple other things with Arizona. If you do apply, they're going to give you until February 27th to change your credit card information in case your credit card got compromised or something. You can pay an extra $5 and use what's called Point Guard. It's like insurance. You can use it once every 5 years, I think, per species. Whereas if you drew and you had a conflict or had to turn the tag back in, you'd get your points restored. What else?
Now, I can see that being handy now, especially where, a lot of these states, Wyoming and Arizona, are going to be coming out about the same time, or at least overlapping a little there. That point guard might be a good thing to not lose your points and not be forced to go hunt. But then at the same time, I think if you draw an Arizona tag, you change your other plans. And
I'm going. If you give me an Arizona elk tag, I'm going. I don't care. Weddings, funerals, court appearance, jury duty. I'm going elk hunting. Heck with that.
Yep.
So maybe some people are different than I am, but there's no way that I'm needing the $5 point guard thing. Because Arizona hunts are that much fun. I'm going. You notice that somebody had in one of our comments, or when they reach out to us on the website about contact us, someone was asking about pound archery, what the minimum draw weights are, and what any broadhead restrictions by state. And I haven't looked them all up, but I looked it up in Arizona just to see what it is. And it's interesting that Arizona only requires 30-pound draw weight for archery hunts. That
interesting.
Yeah,
that's pretty low to hunt an elk. Yeah.
I mean,
yeah,
50?
Idaho's 40 pounds, but I require my children to be at 45, just, personal minimum for them there. I believe Wyoming is 50. I think Wyoming is 50 pounds, which, that's, you're a pretty strong youth when you're pulling 50 pounds. And, there's some women, I think, that aren't much over 50 pounds. So it's definitely a restriction.
And I don't see I couldn't find any restrictions on mechanical versus fixed blade heads. The only thing I found in Arizona was it has to have a cutting width of the metal edges. They have a definition in there about it, of 7/8 of an inch.
Yep.
So, someone had asked that, and I don't know if it's relevant or important.
I'm pretty sure that you can use mechanicals there, because I've heard some horror stories from people who have used mechanicals on elk there specifically, and lost big elk because of a mechanical failure.
Okay. And for those applying for muzzleloader tags, I don't think Arizona has a restriction on anything related to muzzleloaders.
They don't. All projectiles, powder charges, bullet types, and sight systems are legal for muzzleloaders in Arizona.
Yeah. I don't even own a muzzleloader, so I'm not the guy to be giving information on that. But so, well, the odds are I'm going to be applying for late rifle tags with all 4 points I have. I don't have any unit where I'm going to draw in the 20% bonus pass or part 1 pass. So for me, it's just manipulating the Go Hunt database to see which one's going to give me the best odds in the 80% draw or the part 2 draw. And I know those are all going to be late rifle tags. And if I get a wild hair, I guess I could try one of the late archery tags, but I don't think I'm that talented that I should be walking around on a late archery hunt.
Those are definitely appealing to me just because of the potential of bigger bulls in Arizona and the limited number of points that it takes to draw versus a archery or a rifle tag. So I'll definitely be researching those late archery tags, but I'm going to, like I said, I'm going to spend my my current points on an early archery tag and go from there.
Wow. I'm going to leave that up to you, Corey.
I'll be picking your brain. I know you've been there on some late hunts, so.
Yeah. I mean, I've been there on quite a few late rifle hunts, either my tag or helping people. And that's some noisy country to stalk around in. People who are shooting those elk, spot and stock on those late archery hunts, man, they got to be the ninja. I think a lot of people might sit water, but boy, that's a roll of the dice. What if you get a big snowstorm?
Yeah.
And there's water everywhere, which happens every few years. So I'm not going to roll the dice to that degree.
Yeah. The last thing maybe to mention are the season dates this year.
And you got those in front of you?
Yeah, Arizona rotates. Each year it seems to drop back a day, and so some years it ends on September 21st. Some years it's like into October when it ends, and so it is important to kind of pay attention to that and compare that maybe to moon phases or other considerations to make. But I was just looking here on the proclamations, and in 2020, it's September 11th through September 24th are the early archery season dates. And I was just going to look here and pull up the other pertinent.
The rifle dates the late rifle seasons are always the Friday after Thanksgiving. So I think this year that's November 27th.
Showing November 27th through December 3rd for the late rifle. Early rifle is September 25th through October 1st. And then muzzleloader is September 25th through October 1st. In most of the units, there are some that have different dates, but
I'm sure my 4 non-resident points are going to get me one of those late September hunts.
Yeah, September 25th through October 1st rifle hunt. That's
Yeah, I looked on Go Hunt the other day. I think my odds were 1 divided by infinity, and they rounded it up to 0.01%.
They gotta have a statistic in there, so
Right.
they gave you a 0.01.
Yeah. So
Arizona's a long shot for sure, and it's an investment. You've got to put in some time there, but it's when you do draw a tag, I have never even had a slight feeling of disappointment hunting elk in Arizona.
No, Arizona elk hunts exceed all expectations has been my experience.
Yep.
And tons of public land. Most of their elk occur in the areas with abundant public land. It's rare to see a no trespassing sign. I mean, there's a few of those limited opportunity units where you run into that, but most of the core elk area, you're going to have no problem finding public land to chase elk if you have a tag.
Yep. Absolutely. Well, anything else we need to encourage or discourage on when it comes to Arizona?
Well, I was thinking about bad-mouthing some of the units that I'm going to apply for, but I think people would see through that.
See through it. It's kind of like, when somebody says something about what state did you hunt this year on social media, and, you reply Idaho, and then there's like 13 people that are like, not worth hunting in Idaho, no elk left in Idaho, all the elk left Idaho, and it's almost like...
Move along, nothing to see here.
Yeah, it's almost like they're doing more damage by trying to hide the fact that they don't want people coming to Idaho than the contrary. So,
yeah. Well, I hope people are paying attention to that. I think after this Arizona one, the next state, if I remember right, is either going to be Utah or New Mexico.
Okay.
I never remember. I think Utah comes first.
I think, what was the application deadlines last year? I want to say Utah.
I think so.
Yeah.
Which, me and all of my 2 points in Utah, I got a good chance there too.
Yeah.
That's because I drew in 2014.
Yep. Last year it was March 5th. Montana was March 15th, and New Mexico was March 18th.
Yeah, I got to look. I heard rumor that Montana's moving their deadline to April 1st or March 31st or something. Someone told me that the other day. I said, wait a second. It's been March 15th since forever. I got to check that out before that rumor starts floating around.
Yeah.
But either way, those 3 states are the next 3 on the docket, right?
Yep.
So, well, hopefully everybody goes back to our podcast a month or so ago about how you can do this even with a smaller budget of $1,000, because I know there's a lot of people in that situation, and it's great if you got budget and time to apply everywhere. But if you don't use that as an excuse to not have a strategy in place, and you'd still go elk hunting every year.
Yeah, maybe we could do a little bonus episode here in between one of these and talk about maybe a strategy for, not just $1,000, but maybe a long-term, a short-term, a mid-term, and with all of these changes, see if anything changes from what we've talked about in the past.
Yeah, we should do that. Would you put it on our calendar?
It's on there.
Okay, because I have this thing called tax season going on for the next 3.5 months.
I thought you were retired from accounting.
retired implies I have enough money. I'd say quit would be the better word.
Or just if you're tired over and over, that would make you retired. So
retired, yeah. I'm a retread, not retired. I'm retreaded. No, yeah, I'm glad you have it on our calendar because my calendar is a mess right now. So,
yep.
With that, Corey, I hope you have a great day.
Yeah, you too. Thanks, everybody, for listening and tuning in, and we'll keep these state-by-state application process episodes rolling out here, and hope you have good luck, just slightly less good luck than Randy and I in drawing an elk tag.
Yeah. And if people wonder why we focus so much on tag drawings, it's because it is so critical to going hunting. And when we started this podcast, one of our goals was to help people hunt elk more than they do otherwise. So a lot of information we're throwing out there, but it's all with the purpose of getting people out in the hills.
Totally. Yep. Experience what we love and see why we love it. And if you haven't hunted elk, I'd say make 2020 the year that you hunt elk, because obviously with tags going down in Arizona and them holding your money longer in Wyoming, things aren't getting easier. So get out and hunt elk this fall.
Roger, 10-4, all that other stuff that they'd say on that old country music song, Convoy, right?
Randy's going to start saying,
we better quit before I go find those 7-11 long-haired friends of Jesus in the chartreuse microbus or whatever that guy said there. I think they're parked out in my parking lot here. My office is next to the MSU, Montana State University. The number of hooligans that are in my parking lot each day, there might be a chartreuse microbus out there. Last I checked it in.
You're talking in addition to the 8 employees who use your parking lot every day that you typically refer to as hooligans.
Well, yeah. Hopefully they don't listen to this podcast and know that they got lumped in with the 11 long-haired friends of Jesus. So. I don't know. How did I get us drawn down? Let's shut this down before I bring up some other 1970 country music song.
Pull the plug. Get us out of here.
All right.
Folks. Thanks for tuning in.
Thanks for listening.
Yeah, catch you on the next one.